and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce our next keynote speaker, Lieutenant General Stacey Hawkins, the commander of the Air Force Sustainment Center. And I'm not getting another word in today. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate
Absolutely,
that.
sir. Thank you, sir.
So thank you, Rob. I was stationed with him, but he didn't have that voice. So I'm trying to figure out, how do you get the Rob voice? So thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here. I guess I was watching on the side, and I thought the deal was that my time was going to be totally eroded down to 3 minutes. And that didn't happen. And so my speech really is, whatever the four-star just said. I think that's a good strategy for me. I tried to leave on that, and I tell you, I suffered the J. Kalen vengeance. And just want to give you an awareness as to how J. Kalen works. Last year, I thought I would provide him feedback on just how the LOA symposium went. And I said, Jay, I really would have liked to have been on the panel. I said, you didn't give me any love. I wanted to be on the panel. And he said, okay, I got you. I was a keynote speaker on stage, which is a totally different lift. This year, I thought I would be kind of cute, and I got a keynote slot again, didn't complain about that. And at the last minute, I said, I got another commitment. I got to roll out. Can you reschedule me? And the vengeance put me behind John Minahan. So word, don't cross J. Kalen. And the last bit of this, when I tried to leave, he has like a special agent back there who looks exactly like him. It's his son. And so his son wouldn't even let me leave. So I'm happy to be here. And nonetheless, we'll see if we can at least, at best, push and plateau, because we're definitely not going to go any higher after what we just witnessed by a great airman warrior leader. So I'm aged, and I'm going through vision challenges. These are transitions, and I'm wondering if I put them on, will I look too cool for school? So my wife's here in front, and so if they start getting dark, just tell me to put the ones on that I probably should have worn in the first place. But we'll see how this works. But the transitions actually allow me to be able to see a little bit better. Again, this is really cool. First of all, I want to give some shouts out. First of all, on behalf of my boss, General Richardson, who I just left in Utah. General Richardson is on a nationwide tour of AFMC bases, visited Edwards and visited Hill, which is of interest to me. And so Chief Ferrer and I and my wife, Natalie, went to go and accompany him on that visit as we roll out Hill Air Force Base to my boss for the second time. He sends his regards and just knows how big of a deal this is, and just so proud from his perspective, from his words, as to what all the enterprise and all of the folks in this room are doing to protect our nation and our freedoms and values. Thanks, Rob, again for the introduction. I want to congratulate this executive team of the Logistics Officers Association. Please give them a round of applause. Yeah. I don't think the pay is very high for what they do, and just the professionalism and the growth of this organization. If you look over 4 decades, what we are materializing to be is just through sheer volunteerism and, as General Minahan mentioned, sheer passion that allows us to be able to convene as a family year in and year out and really, really talk about important issues, but most importantly, network and fellowship. I think Jay is transitioning. I think General Miller is going to allow him to transition, and I've heard that he's not too keen on doing it, but just give him a round of applause, because if the transition works, he's been one of the most consequential presidents of the Logistics Officers Associations in modern history. So please, a round of applause for Jay Kalen. So to everybody in the room, Total Force, we've gone through and recognized just all of the elements of the enterprise here. We have partners and allies here, I understand. And so this is really, really cool. The net continues to be cast wide, and people come hither. And this is a Field of Dreams effort and a vision, and our forefathers and foremothers of LOA who saw this probably presciently back in the 80s as far as what this organization could be, and I think it's done that and more. So thank you all for being here. My team is here, so my peeps are here, and I got to give them a shout out. First of all, my partner in vision and execution, not partner in crime, although it may look like that sometimes, is Chief Beth Ferrer. So Chief, can you please stand? And our Command Chief of the Air Force Sustainment Center. I think Colonel Hall Sebring is here, and he's our DCOM. So Hall, if you're around, give a wave, hand wave wherever you are. So Colonel Hall Sebring, I think he's planning on making it. If he's not in the room, he does great work for the Sustainment Center. We just completed our executive team, and we were able to bring on board our executive director. And that's important because when we didn't have an executive director, I was trying to do way too much beyond my competency level. And then we have a dream. We now have a dream. Ms. Angie Timofeychik is on board as the executive director for the Air Force Sustainment Center, coming back home. So please give Ms. T a shout out in her absence as she's doing great things across the enterprise. Our Director of Staff is Ms. Wendy Walden. Our Mobilization Assistant is Major General Elizabeth Arledge. And we just brought on board an Air National Guard Assistant to the Commander. I have a problem stringing those words together, so I just call her the ANGA, Air National Guard Assistant to the Commander. And it's Brigadier General Kathy Jumper. So our complete leadership team, total force, bringing all those perspectives, particularly since the Sustainment Center is an organization of primarily civilian airmen, and that's why we're so good. Having that total force perspective across the board is very, very, very valuable. It's humbling to be here. I've been coming to these off and on for a lot of years, and sitting in the back and having a bit of, as General Minahan said, Irish flu on occasion. You can't get Irish flu when you're on stage speaking, so I can guarantee you I'm good as far as being coherent today. Again, General Minahan brings it all in perspective. And again, I am at heart a mobility airman. I've been around a little bit, but started my career when Barksdale Air Force Base had KC-10s, deployed as a second lieutenant, supporting that mission, and been in and out. And so understanding and hearing again and hearing him amplify the importance of the maneuver force, really, really special. So it's great to be able to see him and say hello to him backstage. I talked about the legends of this association, and there are many. I'm sure there are folks out in the room, and I really want to thank you personally for mentoring me, but just thank you for sustaining this vision, but also coming back year over year just to keep this tradition going strong. The sidebar discussions and the conversations we're able to have with you, just so very, very important to keep this spirit and this ethos alive. So to our forefathers and foremothers again, thank you for your excellence, outreach, networking, and mentorship. Last year, I had the opportunity to come here, and I saw it as my first 6 or so months as a Sustainment Center commander. Just wanted to introduce everyone to the Air Force Sustainment Center. My predecessors before me have done that, but I just thought that was my docket at the time. This year, I'd like to provide an update. It's been a consequential year in our organization, and we have aspired to reorient ourselves as the Air Force has changed. And the Air Force, from reoptimization, from everything that Chief 22 put before us as far as the Chief of Staff action orders, what Chief 23 is challenging us to do to follow through, we're trying to keep pace with that. And so I'll try to describe some of those today and also describe where we're going to go in the future and the challenges that I think we're going to face and how we're going to mitigate through those. I'll refamiliarize you with my 4 priorities. They haven't changed. They're the 4 Ps. The first is produce the promise. And that is so important for our organization to have as this North Star, because to the extent that we do that, we will be able to support and generate the readiness that our Air Force needs. The second one is people make it happen. And that is not second as far as order or order of merit. Is second because if we are producing the promise, we are leveraging the people who are making that happen, and they are one and the same. And if you look at the graphic that we display, I'm not going to show it today, you'll see that that particular part of our graphic has that triangle where people make it happen upside down, which really connotes a servant leader mindset that we try to permeate throughout the organization. The third priority is process is how we do it. Our mission culture is art of the possible. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But so much of our business is based on good, effective process. And that's a priority that we remain close to and continue to strive to improve. And the last priority is preparing for competition and warfighting. Last year, I said that that priority was preparing for competition and future warfighting. We're warfighting now. And so I've taken the word future out, and really brought that to being a present state as to what we're doing. Those priorities were applicable a year ago, and they're still applicable and relevant today. So no need to change any of the 4 vectors that we're aspiring and moving toward. But what a difference a year makes. And I would submit that these 4 priorities today are even more aligned with where the Secretary and the Chief and the Department is going, particularly in support of the imperative to reoptimize the Department of the Air Force. AFSC is ready to support and enable power projection, readiness, airman development, and integrated capability delivery. On the slide before you, if you can see them, you'll see that the graphic that has the Air Force Sustainment Center shield in the middle, these are our 8 wing equivalent organizations. And last year we had this slide, and we've not changed it yet, but something dramatic has happened in the Sustainment Center over the past year. We actually took our software engineering groups and we mashed them up, and we stood up a software directorate that is thriving and achieving its goals of doing really 3 things: providing one storefront to our partners, to our customers, and that one storefront allows us to be easier to do business with. It also helps us to be able to drive down costs, because we're able to actually aggregate all the capabilities in those previously disaggregated software engineering groups, and now the one directorate has the ability to bring all of that and leverage those efficiencies to be more effective. And the third one is it allows us to be able to partner in a more agile way with industry and across our organic enterprise. A lot of great work has been done over the year to stand up a new directorate. We always say, between form and function, that function should precede. But when you get into that form stuff, it does become difficult. I'm sure there are members of our software directorate in the audience today. If you could you please stand? Anyone who is a part of the software directorate for the Air Force Sustainment Center. Could you give those folks a round of applause? Truly a transformation effort, and I will tell you that this will be one of the most significant things since the stand-up of the Air Force Sustainment Center that you'll see us do, because software permeates and proliferates across all of our capabilities. And we think when you look at the Secretary's OIs, this organization will be relevant across all 7, as well as all of our cross-cutting enablers. So really, really proud of the software directorate. Very, very excited about talking about the threat. Excited about it because it's important that if you start there and you have a keen understanding as to what the threat is, and thank you for advancing the slide, it allows us to be able to build from it. If you don't have an understanding of the threat, or if you don't have a threat, it really makes things tough. I really show these pictures to really highlight several things. This past year, a recent announcement that the PRC increased its defense budget by 7.2%. Now, you can do a relative comparison, but it is important to note that the FY25 proposal only increases our defense budget by 1%. The rate of change is stark there. If you move around, Kim Jong-un is still relevant, still a dictator, and North Korea as a nuclear-armed power is still something that we have to keep our eyes on. Recently, Vladimir Putin was just elected to another 6-year term in office. And that's a 6-year term on top of 25 years where he's either been the president or a prime minister of the Russian Federation, adding 6 years to that. Talk about authoritarianism and having the longevity and the ability to hold that position is something that we should be concerned about. The Houthis are irrational, in my opinion. They're an irrational actor supported by a state sponsor of terrorism. India is a burgeoning power, and India, I think, is a critical country in the global landscape, in the international system. And to the extent that we partner, and to the extent that we provide incentives for India to partner with our alliances versus others will be increasingly important. I'll say this about Europe, and this is not disparaging at all. Prior to probably 2 years ago, you could talk about Europe, and this is probably not 2 years ago, but I would probably go back to pre-Brexit. And you could say Europe, basically whatever the UK and Germany are doing, then you can build a strategy, you can build a policy, you can build a diplomacy framework on that. You're starting to see that powers in Europe are starting to assert themselves, and they aren't the UK and Germany. You're seeing Italy assert itself. You're seeing France assert itself. You're seeing Hungary assert itself. And you're also seeing Turkey. And that makes that landscape way more complex and complicated than it ever has been before. So while the pacing threat truly is the People's Republic of China, the geopolitical instability is a threat to this country as we seek to remain in our status as what I would call the world's indispensable nation. This threat really shows what VUCA is all about. And I've talked about VUCA for probably a decade or so. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, connected, and ambiguous. And VUCA used to happen every now and then, maybe one day a week, maybe one day a month when I was a kid. VUCA happens every single day. Joe Minahan's speech and talking about everything the Air Mobility Command is doing on a daily basis highlights that we are in a VUCA environment. And as logisticians and as practitioners of the profession of arms, it's even more important that we think about that at the strategic level and actually think about our role to actually power and to present all of the capabilities and all of the capacity that the nation needs to be able to deal in this space as the world's indispensable nation. Next slide, please. This tagline, I don't think we had last year, but we had to come up with something that was less mission statement-y, that was fewer words, but it was a tagline that we could actually capture and repeat over and over again, and that every person in our organization would appreciate where we were going. This is it. We believe on a day-to-day basis we forge readiness. That's our bread and butter mission. And the Department of the Air Force, our Joint Force, wherever we have our fingers involved with, forging readiness is what we have to keep our eyes on a daily basis. We have not been known typically as an innovative organization. So this idea of accelerating innovation has become our mantra, and to do that, we have to horizontally integrate. So taking on the mantle of saying we will be an innovative organization, which really meant to some folks felt a little bit of discomfort because there was a lot of goodness by saying that all we do is forge readiness and that's all we're going to be held accountable for. But now shifting that and saying, not only do we want to forge readiness, but accelerate innovation, it was a culture change and a culture shift for us. And this is an important development as we talk about that. And then the why and the who is for America's warfighters across the board. So I want to show this video, and I think for those who aren't familiar with the Air Force Sustainment Center, this is going to be a video that will take a lot less time to talk about it than I would take if I were to try to explain it. So let's roll the video, please. Thank you.
The mission of the United States Air Force is to fly, fight, and win. But before a single takeoff, a single bomb drop, a single victory, the Air Force Sustainment Center readies our warriors for the fight. As one of 6 centers within Air Force Materiel Command, the mission of the Air Force Sustainment Center is to provide sustainment and logistics readiness to deliver combat power for America. We maintain the nation's most lethal weapon systems, aircraft, engines, missiles, and their myriad components and software. We strip them to the bones, inspect every inch, repair years of use, and rebuild them to precision. With approximately 40,000 personnel spread over 26 geographic locations, including 17 states, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Japan, the AFSC is big business, comparable to a Fortune 500 multi-billion-dollar company, and top 10 in the defense industry. The center's most valuable asset is, without a doubt, its total force airmen. We are artisans, inventors, and engineers. We are financial planners, defenders, logisticians, and above all, innovators. If there isn't a part to replace it, we will design one. If there isn't a tool to repair it, we will create one. We integrate our successful legacy practices with newly emerging technologies to provide the best value to the taxpayer. We rely on our entire span of generational capability to meet the overhaul and repair needs of the entire enterprise. From crafting sheet metal to 3D printing parts, we use every tool in the box. We commit ourselves to constant improvement. Using art of the possible principles, we take a microscope to each of our processes to seek out and eliminate inefficiency. Our 3 air logistics complexes in Utah, Oklahoma, and Georgia are the backbone of our sustainment operations, where most of our maintenance happens. Our 3 air-based wings are the power projection platforms that support everything we do. Our air-based wings keep us safe, keep us fed, and keep us in working order. They support 75,000 airmen and their families who live and work on our installations with force protection, communications, airfield services, and more. Together, our 2 supply chain wings provide the parts, fuel, vehicles, and equipment that make global reach, global power, and global vigilance possible, forecasting needs before we hit. From the Bear, the Air Force's only organic basic expeditionary airfield resources unit, to the Boneyard, our national reservoir of air and space capability. Many of our missions are one of a kind. The accountability of the nation's nuclear enterprise is entrusted to us. We maintain 100% positive inventory control of nuclear weapon-related material. Our sustainment enables the nuclear triad in its mission of deterrence. Above all, we are ready. We are the Air Force Sustainment Center.
So thank you. About a 4-minute video, but it's also a warning to young officers. We know who you are, and we're going to be coming looking for you to be a part of the Air Force Sustainment Center. So put this on your ribbon chart. We need to bring that talent in. Talked about the wing equivalent organizations. We have 8 of them. Our depot commanders here, if you haven't put it on your schedule, check out the depot commanders panel. Major General Kenyon Bell, Brigadier General Brian Moore, and Brigadier General John Eblin are going to be doing that. 3 power projection platforms. So air-based wing commanders are here. Colonel Abby Rosetta, Dietrich Reese, and Jeff Holland. Just left Jeff yesterday. Out of all of those folks, there are heroes performing missions across the board. Our wage grade mechanics and artisans at our depots, our civilian airmen in our air-based wings, our defenders, our combat medics in the house doing this important work. While all of those are very, very important, and there's no dispute about that, what keeps me up at night is the organization, and then we have 2, but Mr. Steve Gray is the director of our supply chain management wing, the 448, and Colonel Flipper Bakazan runs the 635th Supply Chain Operation Wing. Their jobs are so directly connected and so directly nested into generating readiness that when I look at what needs to happen in the form of accelerating innovation and process evolution, is how do we evolve that into the next generation to be prepared to get after great power competition, deterrence, and warfighting. The item manager is the person that you've never heard about who probably has the most effect on your lives as airmen. And the item manager for decades and years has had a critical role as far as being able to support everything that goes on in the Air Force Sustainment Center. If you look at this, the picture on your right was the item manager's job and the environment and their office space 10 years ago. Manual processes, lots and lots of paper, quarterly review cycles, a lot of mundane processing that really led to, not because of any efforts or lack of effort with respect to that individual, but just because we weren't equipped to make the best, most optimal decisions. And those decisions can only be made if you have forecasting tools that can enable that. Over the past 10 years, we've actually brought in different platforms. We've brought in a parts platform that's actually started to modernize that, and you'll see the contrast from a very manual-looking office with reams of paper stacked on top of each other, to a spreadsheet that actually does a better job of aggregating and collecting data. That's only the beginning. In order to get to where we need to get to, the 10-year transformation to move from right to left has to continue. And it's really the Sustainment Center's change imperative for the future. This change imperative is, and let's go to the next slide, is something I'll call the digital depot. And Mr. Jeff Sick, if we can go to the next slide, please. Mr. Jeff Sick and his team, along with all of our other senior leaders across the center, are engaged in materializing what you see here in this OV1. And it's a change imperative that actually gets after improving digital infrastructure, leveraging the Air Force's Cloud One platform, linking on-prem and Cloud One hardware, and actually baking in additional hardware and software for operational technology, cybersecurity services. This is about stitching together everything that's in our center so that we can actually bring closer together in a more connected fashion, protected and able to mitigate cybersecurity threats across all of our depots with our vital Defense Logistics Agency partner, our maintenance support professionals, our organic manufacturing capabilities, and enterprise product lifecycle management, which you will hear a lot about from my boss, as that's become out of the GPC, Great Power Optimization decisions and frameworks. It's become an imperative and a priority for Air Force Materiel Command. Next slide. Foundational to our digital depot is MRO. And that is a word that many folks who are in the IT space and business enterprise system space know a lot about. For our forefathers and foremothers, the word that you may have heard described as not in a not so pleasant fashion is ECSS. We are trying every day, and we will win. This is a proclamation. We will win the battle to actually establish and implement and execute an MRO ecosystem that uses a ERP platform that actually gets after our fire and audit requirements, a computational level that brings in the best-in-class tools for us to be able to leverage those tools to get after preserving our art of the possible mission culture, and a data analytics ecosystem. I made that sound easy, but it's very, very difficult. If we get it right, we'll be able to manifest first of all, MRO and sub-platforms that will come out of MRO will be able to use Escape more effectively. We'll be able to build out an industrial Internet of Things. That is something that's huge and game-changing for our enterprise. That's stitching together and connecting all of our industrial equipment so that these equipment items talk to each other. And everything from maintenance, everything from calibration, everything from assessing historical knowledge, stitching all of that together across all of our industrial factories is going to be the thing that takes us to that next level. And accelerating that, remember, accelerating innovation is the order of the day. If we get there, we'll have streamlined processes. We'll have improved decision-making and optimized resource allocation. That optimized resource allocation is that we will be able to get the most value out of the appropriated dollars that we are gifted to spend year in and year out. So I think I have another video that will describe digital depot. So if you can indulge me for a few more moments, please roll the digital depot video.
The year is 1940. While World War II rages across Europe and Japan steadily expands its power,
Oklahoma City businessmen sense shifting alignments and advocate for an aircraft repair facility. Just a few months later, in 1941,
the War Department grants their request, and construction begins on the Midwest Air Depot. Utah and Georgia also begin construction on repair facilities.
The depots remain in continuous operation, but last saw a major infusion of military construction funding in the 1970s.
Flash forward to present day. The still bustling air logistics complexes in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Ogden, Utah, and Warner Robins, Georgia are now home to over 30,000 employees and millions of square feet of industrial space.
The complexes are big business and key to America's defense and the local economies.
But amazingly, while modernization has occurred, the ALCs continue to use 20th century infrastructure to support 21st century air power.
Daily, at all three ALCs, maintenance of legacy aircraft and modern weapon systems collides in facilities that are part museum and part Hollywood. Today's complexes are made up of amazing men and women who, on a daily basis, are performing heroic actions as the Air Force's weapon systems, engines, and numerous components are dismantled, restored, and put back into service. These artisans keep both aging and modern systems maintained, while using equipment and facilities well past their useful life.
To meet the modernization challenge, in June 2023, the Air Force Materiel Command Commander released his vision for Digital Material Management, or DMM. DMM will replace outdated processes, foster digital collaboration, and adopt enterprise DMM capabilities. As one of the 6 AFMC centers, AFSC is responsible for the organic industrial base and implementing the DMM tenets.
Enter Digital Depot. Imagine a future where shop floor personnel have the data and tools at their fingertips that they need to quickly and efficiently do their jobs. Imagine a depot that takes full advantage of smart technology. Once a dream, now a reality. This technology is in use today across the globe, and even by the Air Force's prime contractors.
Digital Depot efforts are modernizing the AFSC industrial floor today, saving time and money,
as well as increasing quality, as AFSC supports all aspects of Air Force operations and enables the Air Force to generate combat air power. In short, imagine a shop floor like this: human-to-machine interface. Machine data that drives real-time business process automation. Real-time views of capacity, quality, and performance across all ALCs. Machines that provide day-to-day reporting functions, unlocking the bandwidth of our people to focus on analysis and improvement.
Machine-to-machine interface. Machine learning and artificial intelligence that provides preventative maintenance and production automation. Securely open data transmission from shop floor machining functions to enterprise analytic capabilities.
process improvements in cybersecurity, maintenance, process, and training improvements across all ALCs through the deployment of cutting-edge technology, effortless connectivity using wireless, threat detection, and remediation.
The evidence of greatness lies all around us. Digital Depot is the future, and efforts have already begun transforming the depots into 21st century industrial spaces. These efforts include
Dedicated control systems networks at each of the complexes, Industrial Internet of Things enterprise contract, near real-time monitoring of CNC machine mission capabilities, AFSC data analytics as a service,
and robotic process automation.
Now, the burden is on us to continue the incredible work that started in 1940, to carry on the technological advances that the 21st century has brought us.
As a team, let's work together to ensure that this legacy carries far into the future. It's easy to see the criticality of the Air Force's depot to the security of our nation. Much harder, though, is the task at hand, protecting our organic industrial base for future generations of warfighters and sustainers.
All right, so thanks so much. Building on that is a supply sprint that my boss commissioned last year. And that supply readiness and resiliency sprint is driving us to collaborate horizontally more aggressively than we ever have been. We're looking to strongly collaborate with DLA, as I mentioned before. You're going to see the Air Force Sustainment Center and the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center collaborate and lock arms in ways that you've never seen us do so before. If you're a product support manager, I want you to see yourself as a sustainer. And there are no walls between product support managers and program offices. And our depots, our supply chain, we need to see ourselves as a porous organization working together to tackle the same problems. We need to up our collective game when it comes to technical depth and mutual understanding. As a maintainer, sustainer, I've made it my mission to learn all I can and all I wish I would have known about how program offices work. And we need the same from a program office perspective, understanding the sustainment businesses. Sustainment businesses, because there are many, how resources work, how processes work, how our R2D2 process works. That is what General Richardson has challenged us to do. And also he's challenged us to build a compelling narrative at the enterprise level to obtain additional resources. Some of this we will be able to accomplish through efficiency, but at the end of the day, in order to restore a withering vendor base and a withering defense industrial base, we're gonna need to ask for more resources to be able to do that, to catch ourselves back up in order to sustain in the future. So the supply sprint is allowing us to get after that. Next slide, please. This is a slide that, we can go back one. This is a slide that I want to just introduce as new ideas that we're throwing around. The supply sprint is one of those, but the idea of where we can gain easier access to capital that's in the marketplace. And to our industry partners out there, we're starting a conversation in the Sustainment Center, and we've seen use cases happen across the joint force. Where private equity and use cases and pilot efforts to use private equity capital to actually restore some of our vendors who've either gotten out of the organic sustainment business or the defense sustainment business. How do we bring them back in? It's a discussion that sometimes perks attention, but I think when you look at the vast amount of capital in the marketplace, particularly when it comes to private equity, it's an area that we need to look into. Next slide, please. This is just to show, as the slide, the video showed before, the Sustainment Center has been comfortable being in this configuration for the 12 years that it's existed. Next slide, please. If you weren't inspired by General Minahan's speech about what needs to happen as far as being able to push or use the word explode into theater, if our operational organizations, if our components are going to do that, the Sustainment Center needs to think about how it does that. We've had a presence at the Support Center Pacific for decades now, and we are experimenting and we're exercising and we're thinking about how we will do that in tandem with our components and force providers in the future. You'll see that this slide also designates locations that we've been to over the past 2 months. We have presented and proposed a new framework. It's the Global Enterprise Network for Universal Sustainment. It's called GENUS, and if you're a biologist, you know genus and species. Genus is to spawn something, and we're trying to spawn a network that will allow us to be in theater and close the tyranny of distance and supply lines of communications gap that exists between us providing to support to the theaters who are depending on us. We have already been to Australia, New Zealand, and the Philippines. We're setting out to go to Guam, Tinian, and Saipan later on in April. And we're also having, the planning is in place for an excursion to Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. So more to follow on that. But this is thinking about your uncle's or your father's sustainment center as being contained within our shores, and thinking about more so, how do we, as the pie gets larger, this isn't a zero-sum game, it's not distributive, but it is integrative. As the pie gets larger, how will we actually accommodate the need and address the need to push our capabilities and capacity into theater in partnership with allies and those who have capabilities that we can leverage. So to our partners and allies out there, we're looking to work with you. Next slide, please. Workforce evolution. We have a Rosie the Riveter spirit all through our sustainment center, our depots, our legacy depots, and preserving and expanding that spirit is something that's near and dear to us. Rosie the Riveter represents the 300,000 plus women that actually came to work in our industrial factories in the early 1940s. The year before, women constituted 1% of the aviation workforce across the nation. That ballooned to 65% women in 1 year. And I would argue that that was the game changer that first of all helped build the organic industrial base, but also to sustain it. Next slide. We have modern incarnations of Rosie the Riveter, and I'd like to just give you a brief description of these two women and teammates. Miss Tanya Perkins is a leader in her own right. Tanya was homeless in Houston, Texas 15 years ago, moved to Oklahoma, pulled herself by up her bootstraps, and gained her education and is studying to achieve a master's degree in forensics, working at Tinker Air Force Base, representing all the values of Rosie the Riveter 80 years ago. And Captain Relita Rich Ramos, an immigrant from the Philippines. 5 years ago, the application was submitted by her parents or grandparents, and it took 16 years for her to finally get the call. And at 21 years old, 5 months shy of not being eligible for an immigration to the United States, Rich immigrated to the United States, immediately joined the Air Force with her sisters, and has dedicated her professional life and the prime of her life to serving the nation in uniform. Rich is a mom, Rich is a wife, Rich is a combat operator LRO, deploying multiple places as an LRO, and she's now serving in the Logistics Career Broadening Program. So Tanya and Rich are examples of the Rosie the Riveter ethos. And I challenge everyone in this room, we need to go out and find the next generation of Rosies. Whether they're men, whether they're women, whether they're immigrants, whatever circumstances they come from. Let's go to the next slide. There's a spirit that actually raises the attributes that you see here. Those attributes of patriotism, resourceful, being multi-capable, fearless, courageous, inspirational, trailblazing, independent, and persistent. Tanya and Rich exemplify, and they're exemplars for these attributes. And we need to go find the next generation that will build on the successes of the scores of folks who've been doing this for the last 80 years. And our success and a great power competition fight is going to depend on it. Next slide, please. Now it's building out. I will touch on this a bit. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There are a lot of conversations about culture these days. And I would ask that we all, and this is a masterful construction of a leadership model that was created by Lieutenant General retired Bruce Litchfield. And what's so special about it is that it's simple. And it's one depiction of all the things that you need to build an effective culture that resonates with everyone regardless of background. And everyone who's been in the Air Force Sustainment Center, you should know this model, but it's building a leadership culture that's creating the environment for success. And all the things from speed, safety, and quality, people, processes, and resources, being keenly focused on cost effectiveness. But the most important part of this model is the outer ring. And I don't talk about programs a lot as the Air Force Sustainment Center. I do talk about the leadership model, and I talk about the 6 attributes around it. And they're universal. Teamwork, accountability, respect, transparency, credibility, engagement. When we talk about that in those ways, we're able to unfreeze the room and move forward to get after those really tough challenges about like how do we build an MRO platform? How do we achieve industrial Internet of Things? How do we get after building digital infrastructure? How do we partner more keenly and extremely with DLA and our program offices? This is so important to the work that we're going to be doing in order to protect the nation's freedoms and values. Next slide, please. And this is what I think that picture looks like. Going global makes a lot of folks feel uncomfortable. It makes a lot of folks feel that we're losing something. But this cultivating sustainment in a global way, from what we're doing in the UK with Operation Atlantic Eagle, leveraging the capability and capacity at UK depots, DECA sealing being one, to actually going and surveying through these various excursions in the Pacific. And whether it's commercial industrial capacity, whether it's embedding folks to train, advise, or assist, or whether it's embedding Americans on a semi-permanent basis like we've been doing at the SCIP, to actually bring the capabilities and capacities that we need for our warfighters to be effective. Next slide, please. And a shout out to the command that I think is an institutional command, but also an indispensable command. We're going to see a lot of changes in our Air Force, but the Air Force Material Command will continue to be the command that brings this all together. And for those of us who have the opportunity to serve in it, or those who've had the opportunity to serve in it, I know you appreciate the imperative that's necessary for us to forge readiness and accelerate innovation. My parting thought, and mine aren't going to be as profound as General Minahan's, but I will ask everyone and compel everyone to think about this idea. We spend a lot of time personally being committed to our personal careers, being committed to our personal career progression, our career stability, how well we're doing our jobs. If you change that commitment to evaluating and mirror checking your commitment to the profession of arms, the answer that you will actually get back if you ask yourself that question, or if you ask yourself where your commitment lies, is the answer that I think you need to internalize as to where you need to be, including myself, where I need to be relevant in this fight and to lead and follow through it in order to be able to be the force for good and the force that actually aspires to be all the things that we aspire to be as a nation. So a commitment to the profession of arms is what I'll leave you with. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I wish you a very, very enjoyable rest of the conference. Thank you.